pleasure of presenting today with Yakov Kimmelfield from MediaVest, and we were presenting our study Seeing the Patterns. Really, it was just to talk about the power of display advertising, and I think we've heard a lot about the future in the next 2 to 5 years. The great thing that we see in the study is that this is the present, and we have an opportunity, I think, to optimize the space so that the end consumer obviously engages more with advertising and marketers obviously benefit. And I think that's really what the crux of the study is. And really, the way we've actually framed it out, we know that from a digital display perspective, consumers, they are controlling messages as opposed to embracing them because it's so price-driven. The messages don't technically resonate. And so our approach was really to understand consumer value in 2010. What does value actually look like across 5 categories? And by understanding these dimensions of value, we can message much more effectively to consumers. We actually looked at home improvement products, consumer packaged goods, apparel, health and beauty, and consumer electronics. And really, we broke down the value equation. I think for the last few years, it's been a very scary and turbulent time from an economic perspective. And a lot of brands would come to us and say, I think my consumer might be trading down. But the reality is they're trading up but spending less, and they're being a lot more deliberate about their spend. We actually have some data that actually speaks to that. What's really interesting about the value component is while price is always on this side and critically important, there's 3 factors that obviously impact value, and that's this whole concept of the more factor. What am I getting in terms of extras? Free shipping, this quality factor, which is all about quality products and quality brands, and then the emotional quotient or bond that we're calling it, which is what I think has been lacking so much in display ads. It's really how am I going to be connecting to this brand? Am I happy to share it with a friend or family? Does it reward me? I think a lot of that has been missing for some time, and the way I see it is it's more of an opportunity for us to differentiate and disrupt, specifically in digital ads. Right now, when we talk about the digital display medium, it's a trackable thing. Direct response is always going to be a large portion of that, but it's as consumers begin to go online more and it becomes a much greater part of what they're doing, we have to sort of optimize that ad inventory so that we're telling the right brand stories that will engage these consumers, and I don't think that actually happens right now. And so that's what I mean. I mean, I think the conference has been amazing because we do need to think about the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to the iPad, when it comes to mobile, but we can't stop what we're doing now digitally because so much of what happens still happens on the PC. So much of the ways that we can talk to consumers we haven't yet even touched or made better. And I think that's what I mean. So by no means am I saying that we're in the wrong direction, but we should stop and think about what we're doing and how we're optimizing what we have available even today, I think. Speaking to consumers where they're comfortable, some of the things that we actually found is that consumers will actually control messages as opposed to embrace them because they feel inundated with irrelevant messages. There was a woman named Christine who was part of our consumer electronics panel, and she basically said, I find car deals very odd when I'm online because how often am I actually in a car? So it's about talking to her and what's relevant to her. Also, I think that consumers feel oversold. Within our study, some consumers actually talked about when they're online and they're looking at advertising, they feel that it's like being in a world of car salesmen. And even this whole this concept that we need to make sure that the advertising that we communicate helps consumers make the right choice, because I think the democratization of information actually gives you the ability to compare prices, features and functions, and we make these purchase decisions at such a practical level we need that emotional bond so that we don't turn the purchasing journey into the marriage journey. You know, and so I think if we start to connect with these consumers based on how they're thinking about their purchases, they make that leap or that moment of truth when they want to make a purchase like much easier. And so those would be some of the recommendations that we had from the study. I think that there are implications for digital in general. I think that what we found has huge implications for digital, for video, for rich media, for microsites, for what you're doing even on social media. And so I definitely agree with you there. It was outside of Yahoo, and we worked with a really great partner called Added Value. It was two-pronged or two-phased. The first was qualitative. It's a 12-day pseudo-longitudinal study where we embarked on the consumer journey of how they actually bought products, whether big or small. And the great thing about these interactive community boards is we were able to ask them questions, they could respond, they could comment on top of the responses. One of the fun things that we did was we had them create the ultimate ad. So if you're in market for a red top coat and you love Macy's, we asked the consumers, well, how do you want Macy's to talk to you? And then obviously with great qual, you come up with a really fantastic framework. And we ended up validating that by talking to 2,000 in-market consumers and post-consumers. So across those 5 categories that I just talked to you about. So. I think what was really interesting is the whole value proposition. I myself actually believe that consumers definitely were trading down, and they surprised me. Regardless of economic sentiment, we actually found that consumers were more likely to be focused on the quality of the product as opposed to the price of the product when it came down to it. And I actually felt, I brought in some other materials from the Harvard Business Review that talked about pricing strategy. Stephanie Clifford from the New York Times wrote a really great article about heritage brands. I think that we're really starting to see some of this stuff happen because consumers are no longer thinking disposable, but they're thinking, I'll spend a little bit more to basically get the right thing, and it's going to last. And so some of the values that we saw post-depression, we're starting, I think, just to see even in the early, or in the teen 2000s. So it's very interesting.
And so is this work being reincorporated back into Yahoo?
I think so. I hope so. What we're hoping is that the sales force can really speak much more smartly about where the consumer's headed across categories. And even in terms of the kinds of ads that we flight on our properties. I think if you can optimize and make better advertising, everybody wins. The consumer gets better ads, the marketers connect much better, and obviously the publisher wins. And so I'm really hoping that there's really good synergy to the work, and we really see some traction. And so, and it was really great to work with Yakov at MediaVest. He's a great partner. It's challenging, and I think it takes a lot of this might sound like a simple, lame answer, but I think you have to really trust expertise and discipline. My trade is about primary research. It's about discovering these insights, and I work very closely with teams internally that really understand insights at a much broader level on our properties, about our audiences, and also one of the great things about working out of Yahoo, I think when I was talking to you, is just this ability to do these studies that you think about that affect the that are outside of Yahoo, but because we have so many properties, we have so much content, we have search, you really start to see some of these trends actually happen as well in real time, and so it's exciting. And it can be a little daunting at times too. I think obviously equivalizing some sort of GRP metric online, and so that it's a lot easier to actually think about and buy display in a similar manner. I think there's so much more you can do with the online space from an emotional perspective that I don't see a lot of marketers harnessing, and I'd like to see that. And even all the things that we've been talking about. I mean, mobile, social, and the iPad. I mean, it is game changing, and those are things that I think all companies, including Yahoo, will be figuring out. And it's just been a wild ride, just being in the industry for as long as I've been, and just seeing all this growth and trying to learn. So there's a lot of learning left for me to do. I used to do search research on the Yahoo search marketing side. And I mean, even when you think about how far searches has evolved, it used to be about the last click, and now it's how it actually impacts the top of the funnel research process. I mean, what's really great is doing work that is a little out there, and sometimes it stimulates debate, and you could be wrong, or sometimes you're right, and so you start to see some of those things change for marketers, and you see spend shift, and so it's just really finding those consumer stories. I think it's always baked into or it really goes back to the consumer. It's like, what are they doing with the medium? How are they interacting? And how do you kind of bring that to life so that marketers can buy into it and invest in it? And so I think for I can give you a concrete example, which is how search is really, it's not just about the last click. It's really about that upper funnel, which is a story that I think I tried to tell years ago with a number of my colleagues at Yahoo, on the digital display side, as we've been talking, it's not just about the direct response or about deals, but it's about really connecting at a much deeper level, which has implications, I think, to your point, to microsites, to social media, to Twitter, etc. And so, yeah. When anyone ever says it's the death of the focus group or behavioral metrics matter the most, as someone who's always learning and realizing that there's a lot more for me to learn, I think a lot of the tools that we already have should be combined with behavioral metrics to tell complete stories. There's still value in qual. Luckily, I think working at Yahoo and working for a great org, even experimenting. So this is not the rant part, this is actually a good part. Just experimenting in new methodologies, like being able to do that community group for the study. It's not new, but it's just the ability to do things like that. So I think also, if I could rant, it's telling these stories over and over again and just waiting for change. Sometimes you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over in a new study, and just really hoping that the industry sees this and takes value in it. That would be my one big rant as a researcher. Sometimes I think we overcomplicate things, right? We make it so complicated that people's eyes glaze over. And it's the thing is, whenever you try to do new things and new insights, it's tough. So I think it's about the simplification and also, in my humble opinion, it's about the humility of it all too. Just knowing you're not the smartest guy in the room, and a lot of the things that I learn from the folks I speak to, which is the consumer, and taking their stories and bringing it to life, and say, look, if the consumer's doing this, why are we not doing this? Why are we not shifting here? Why are ad dollars not shifting there? And so I think that's basically that's my rant of the day, I guess. So.